My name is Michael Patrick.
I'm Nicholas Catalanato.
Emily Lilla.
Matt Weiss.
Sam Gelani.
And our idea pitch is smart medicine delivery patches using M3 Tegaderm Plus pads. So go ahead. Give the next. Yep.
Okay, so a little bit of background. So there's two obvious methods for ingesting medication, and there's the oral administration and there's hypodermic injections. And so there's common problems with both of them that would be comparable with the transdermal method. And with oral administration, it's easy to forget to take your medication, and also it's not as effective for extended release medications. It's because it doesn't release it gradually and consistently. Also, it doesn't go directly into the bloodstream. Instead, it has to go through the digestive system, so you have the acidic environment, which alters the medication within your stomach. And there's also many side effects with oral administration. With hypodermic injections, they're more abrasive and they can spread disease. And this is more common with vaccinations, because a lot of the vaccinations in like Africa, they share the needles, and then a lot of them end up with HIV and AIDS and hepatitis, and ended up killing about 1.3 million people per year. And also, hypodermic needles do not create as strong of an immune system response as transdermal, because transdermal can use a lower dose to create more of an immune system response, and it also affects the dendrites within your dermis. So, but yeah, and also with hypodermic needles, you can't, or most times you can't self-administer the medication.
The idea of the smart patch utilizes transdermal injections, which essentially relies on an array of microneedles that only barely go below the surface of the skin to start secreting these, drugs. They're safer than hypodermic injections. They're more localized than oral medications, and they're discreet. They can be worn on your body for periods of time. It also utilizes the 3M Tegaderm Plus pad, which is waterproof, so it can be taken in a wide variety of situations, like out in the rain, maybe you're swimming, who knows, shower. The skin contact of the pad makes it a very optimal injection site. It can be used to administer long-term doses for things like Adderall. The microneedle technology is being done by 3M, and they even have dissolvable microneedles being implemented, so it's environmentally friendly. The injection module is interesting because it's different depending on what drug you need, whether you need Adderall or fentanyl, whatever situation you're in, you can get one specifically for that. It increases safety, and it takes down on skin irritation.
Okay, so here's just a little diagram to show you where the microneedles would penetrate. It only penetrate the stratum corneum, and it wouldn't actually go to the dermis or through the epidermis. So it will cause minimal irritation, and a lot of studies have found that a lot of patients didn't have any pain whatsoever with this patch.
A key feature with this design is that it has a lot of modularity. Depending on the type of drug used or the type of application, you can change the cartridge's type, you can change cartridge size, you can change the type of microneedles on the cartridge, you can change the way that it actually lets the medicine go to the microneedles. So depending on the chemical, depending on the drug, depending on the dosage, this can be changed depending on the purpose, and depending on the expenses of the area, the community, the country. How we designed each portion, it's got four main components. It's got a pad component, which is the 3M Tegaderm. And it's inexpensive, and it lasts a decent amount of time, and that's also replaceable. The chip will rest on top of it, but be able to be taken off and put back on another 3M Tegaderm patch. The reservoir injection component, like we said, is microneedles, and that can depend on the purpose. The electronic component is reusable. So this component is independent of the rest of it. You keep this when you get a new cartridge that has the drug or put a new adhesive on. So to minimize cost for the consumer, so all they have to buy are patches and then the drug itself. They just need the electronic component and they can keep that indefinitely. The electronic component could be just given by a doctor, could be gone through insurance to make sure that there's minimal abuse when it comes to certain drugs. When it comes to class 2, class 1 drugs, it can minimize all of those kind of issues. Also, it was going to be made on a flexible printed circuit board, so this patch will actually stay as a patch. It won't feel like you have a square cube stuck to your body. It'll mesh with your body and feel like nothing's going on. And then for the power source, there'll be watch batteries or something of that sort. Very small, probably standard watch batteries. So our models were designed to be placed over the cloth portion of a Tegaderm pad, shown right in the center there. And then a key feature here is that this is just a small sketch. We have other models of it as well. The microneedles will have a cap over them before use on the cartridge so that it breaks through the cloth area, and then you take this part off and then you actually apply it to the skin to make sure that the microneedles are actually touching the body and that the microneedles don't get damaged by the cloth. It prevents any accidental damage from using it. And since this will have electronics on it, we can use a simple control loop, such as PID, to make sure that it's going to give the right amount. It's going to have sensors, depending on the application, depends on what kind of sensors. It'll have a different kind of control loop that's interchangeable and configurable to make sure that the user is getting the right amount of medicine at all times, so it doesn't overdose or underdose or anything else of that sort. Next. So this is a quick model of the cartridge. It's got a lot of microneedles here, as you can see. This is just the standard cartridge. Go to the next slide. This cartridge will be placed on the chip. Now, this is being the chip, not the actual Tegaderm patch. The Tegaderm patch would be below it. It's got a sensor system. This depends on the application. The microcontroller with the batteries. All this would be connected to run this machine. Go to the next one. And here's what it looked like on the bottom. There'd be some sort of sensor system here. It would just be surface, because there are designs for surface sensors for blood pressure, heart rate, glucose levels, electrolyte levels, and other chemicals. So that can be used to analyze the person's health attributes at the moment, and with that particular processor, it'll be able to compute things like that real time. So next. And then for use and abuse prevention, the patch and cartridges could be prescribed to a doctor and used by insurance to minimize costs for people and to make sure they don't get abused. Patch will be charged by a USB microcontroller or a micro USB connection with rechargeable batteries, or it could be standard batteries and you just replace the batteries, whatever the market would be ideal for. The actual configuration for the chip would be using a proprietary plug, not different technology of like communication, just a special plug so that it can't get abused, so somebody can't just mess with it or accidentally break it. It's separate from the charging portion, so it prevents any sort of accidental error in the machine. Next.
All right, so most people are probably thinking that this is going to be ridiculously expensive, and it's not. So this is just a couple of graphs that we came up with for some of the main components. I'll let him explain which this part is real quick.
Yeah, this is the processor itself, ATmega 3128P. If you've ever heard of an Arduino, it's the type of chip that it uses, and those are pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, but as you can see, like it starts, if you buy like 100 of them, it's about $3 a pop. But for big companies, they would mass produce. It goes almost down to $1.50 a pop, so it's actually pretty cheap. This is just like standard watch battery prices. So yeah, as you can see, same thing. And this is the, I'll let Tim explain it again.
Yeah, this is a flexible printed circuit board. So this is where all the components to be actually soldered to and mounted to, and it would, again, allow it to be more comfortable and more easily embedded onto the adhesive.
Yeah, that's not as generous as the first one, but as you can see, it does go down based off of how much you do buy, and as you can see, the total cost really isn't that high for 10,000 units, which is pretty good. Okay.
Okay, so here are a list of potential medications that are already out on the market as transdermal medications. So you can see there's everything from, okay. Oh, everything from motion sickness medications to testosterone to fertility, growth, contraceptive, you name it, almost every medication, there is some type of transdermal medication. And the biggest one coming out right now is Alzheimer's medication, which would be perfect for this application, seeing that they won't have to remember to take it.
Any questions?
So I'm not familiar with the transdermal delivery for drugs, but is there any risk of infection with reusing and the electronics? And have you addressed how you could sterilize the electronic component of that?
Yep. So the microneedles are actually part of the cartridge. So when the cartridge is empty and they replace it for more medicine, it's a whole new microneedle. So similar to standard drug applications where you use new needles every time, you'll be using a new microneedle set. Now, as far as environmental perspective, the cartridge can be made out of biodegradable material, so it would decompose, as well as the needles. They have developed dissolvable microneedles, so after a certain amount of time, they'll go away, and there will be no long-term disposal issues as with needles. Yes?
I saw you had a controller loop.
Yep.
Is the drug delivered at a preset rate, or is it based on sensor input?
Both. So there's a standard rate, and then it's going to be modified depending on, for instance, let's say it's a chemical that stays in the bloodstream. It would read that and see that, oh, there's too much. We're going to lower the amount that's being put out now, or there's too little, increase the amount to prevent any sort of issues with overdosing or underdosing. And this would be pre-configured by the doctor based on certain vital signs.
So the rate, what's the advantage of the transdermal package?
This compared to a transdermal patch?
Yeah, because
Those are passive. So those give you a linear amount or a standard amount based on body heat. This is active and controls depending on any factors that could occur.
Good, thank you.
So the product that was in your box was the Tegaderm pad, and can you explain to me the advantage of using the microneedles with the Tegaderm pad in the application system?
Well, with the Tegaderm pad, it stays to the skin and it's waterproof. So it stays on your hand or arm and doesn't move, allowing the microneedles to stay still. So it doesn't have to be strapped or mounted on. It's just a patch, microneedles, just ready to go. The Tegaderm 3M pads are just bandages of sorts, so we just go right on top of that and stay still.
So the microneedles go on top of the bandage?
They go through. So what I was saying before is that there's going to be a point on a casing on top of the microneedles that's going to pierce through the cloth, and then you're going to remove this casing, and then you're going to have the cloth and then a square where the microneedles are. So they'll never touch. They'll be separate.
So this technology already exists and people are using it for different diseases like diabetes and all. So how are you different from what's going on?
Well, those are, of course, for insulin, and those are also a few $1,000s. This will be an order of, well, with the parts we have now, that'll be an order of $10 to $20 for the entire component. The microneedles would be the most expensive component, but that would not be $1,000. So this would be for any other kind of drug beyond diabetes. This could be for MS medication. This could be for ADHD medication, antidepressants, pain relief. And another key feature is that you put it on your back, put it somewhere, and go on with your day like everything else, like everything's normal. You won't have to worry about it. Yes.
So if the patch has like batteries and whatnot on it, it's as thick as the battery is at least, so it's still flexible as the patch already is.
There'll be small watch batteries on the one backside, so it won't mess, won't cause any of the axes to not be able to bend, because between those two batteries it'll be flexible. So it'll still have that contour feeling, even though there's a little bit of thickness there. Yeah. Any other questions?
How far down do the microneedles go in?
It doesn't even go through the dermis. It goes through a very, very thin layer of your skin, the stratum corneum. So, yeah, and then it absorbs and goes through to the dermis.
You mentioned something about controlling the flowing of the drug into the skin. How exactly would you control? Is there some sort of liquid that forming some reason, or how exactly are you going to control it?
The drug is going to be liquid. All these drugs will be liquid form going through the microneedles into the body. And then there'll be other sensors to read vital signs to determine, or even the chemical percentages themselves within the blood.
So will there be like a very small valve or something that will change? Like how will it?
Yeah, so that depends on the application. There are certain membranes that you can put inside of medication that, through electric shock, allows molecules to flow through it, and that can be controlled through that way. And there are also valve applications that you could do alongside that.